This is the result of poor parenting. Parents of troubled children lack the qualities of true leaders. I'd love to see the face of such an irresponsible parent. That was what my father, John, said as his final remark during the mayoral debate, responding to a reporter's question about a scandal involving another politician's son. Seated in the front row of the VIP section were the CEO of Anderson Capital and his wife. My father's campaign saw one goal as paramount in this election: securing a $1 billion factory investment from this powerful firm. As the linchpin for job creation and economic growth, my father was determined to secure the Anderson family's support no matter what it took. I sincerely hope Mr. Anderson will invest in our town. My father had repeated countless times throughout his speech. Then came the question from a reporter. Recently, Senator Wesley's son was arrested for underage drinking. As a candidate, how do you feel about situations like this? My father answered smugly, "This is the result of poor parenting. Parents of troubled children lack the qualities of true leaders. I'd love to see the face of such an irresponsible parent." In that instant, a woman from the VIP section stood up. "Maybe you should look in the mirror. Then you'll see an irresponsible parent is standing right in front of you, Dad." All 2,000 attendees turned their eyes toward the woman who had just spoken. She was none other than the wife of the CEO of Anderson. Next to her, Brian Anderson also rose, scanning the stunned crowd. "Everyone, this is my wife, Lauren, and she is also the biological daughter of candidate John Smith." Gasps rippled through the audience. No one had expected that the wife of the billionaire investor was also the estranged daughter of the candidate, and that she would publicly brand him as an irresponsible parent. I had spent 22 years preparing for this moment. Since I was 17, after enduring unspeakable cruelty, I've climbed step by step. Each step driven by a quiet, calculated pursuit of justice. Let me tell you who I am now. My name is Lauren Anderson, age 39. I'm the Vice President of Anderson Capital and CEO of the New Hope Foundation, an organization I built from the ground up. The foundation is the largest women's empowerment nonprofit in the country, with an annual budget exceeding $100 million. We've supported over 100,000 women so far and have worked alongside the government to help shape legislative reform. I've been named one of Forbes' 50 most powerful women in the world for 7 consecutive years. I serve as a UN Special Ambassador for Women's Empowerment. I've been invited to the White House multiple times and maintain a personal relationship with the First Lady. My office is on the 50th floor of a Manhattan skyscraper. I wake up at 5 a.m., train for 2 hours in my private gym, and am at my desk by 7, managing a team of 200 staff members. "Lauren, we just got a request from CNN," my assistant Tracy informed me. "They want you live on air tonight for a debate on teen pregnancy." "Accept it," I replied without hesitation. "It's the perfect opportunity to share my experience. I make all my decisions independently. Even my husband Brian knows better than to interfere with my business. But 22 years ago, I lived through a hell no one could imagine. Let me take you back to a small town in California, 22 years ago. I was 17, enduring unspeakable abuse in my own home. My father, John Smith, was a political science professor at the local university. My mother, Vanessa, a former banker. My sister, Kelly, a pageant queen and town darling. To outsiders, we looked like the picture-perfect family. But behind closed doors, it was a living nightmare. I was emotionally and physically tormented by every member of my family. "Lauren, you're hideous." My father would sneer at me during breakfast. "Hard to believe you share the same genes as Kelly." With that face and that brain, your future's doomed." My mother would add, "I wish you had never been born." But Kelly was the cruelest. "Thanks to you, I seem more valuable. Lauren being compared to my ugly little sister only makes me look more beautiful." And that was just a daily routine. From the moment I woke up to the moment I went to sleep, I was bombarded with insults and psychological torture. But the most degrading part was the financial discrimination. Kelly received a $500 monthly allowance, luxury clothes, private piano and ballet lessons, and funding for elite private schooling. I, on the other hand, got the bare minimum. My clothes came from thrift stores or were Kelly's hand-me-downs. I wasn't allowed to take any extracurriculars, and even attending public school was considered a waste of money. At 15, I began working part-time. But my paychecks were confiscated. "It's to help with household expenses," my father said coldly. "The money you earn belongs to this family." All of my monthly paycheck was taken and used to pay for Kelly's extracurricular lessons. When I tried to go out with my few friends, my father would sabotage it. He'd call their parents and say, "You shouldn't let your daughter hang out with Lauren. She's a bad influence." It was all lies. But no one dared question the town's respected professor. Eventually, I was completely isolated. My friends began to avoid me, and at school, I was completely alone. The verbal abuse was only one part of it. My father regularly physically punished me. "It's discipline," he said coldly. "A failure like you needs strict correction." I was hit and kicked over trivial matters, and at times locked in my room without food. My mother and sister never stepped in. "It's Lauren's fault," my mother said. "She makes your father so angry." But the most unforgivable thing they did was deliberately trying to destroy my future. I had top grades. I dreamed of going to college. But my father made sure to crush that dream completely. "Girls don't need a college education." That was my father's verdict. Graduate high school and get a job, start contributing to the household. He tore up my scholarship applications right in front of me. "You're reaching above your station," he sneered. "A girl like you in college? Don't make me laugh." He used his influence as a respected professor to sabotage my recommendation letters. He made sure I'd never have the chance to go. In the midst of that living hell, there was one glimmer of light. Brian Anderson. He was a college student working part-time at a local cafe. He was the first person who treated me like a human being. To keep my part-time earnings hidden from my parents, I asked for my pay in small amounts, always in cash. And it was with that secretly saved money that I allowed myself one small escape, a visit to a cafe. That's where I met Brian. "You're beautiful," he said the first day we met. "But why do your eyes look so sad?" Tears welled up in my eyes. For the first time in my life, someone had called me beautiful. We started seeing each other in secret. I knew that if my family found out, they might actually kill me. On weekends, we'd meet at a remote lake outside of town. Only when I was with Brian did I feel even remotely human. "You have limitless potential. Someday, I know you'll break free from this." I shared my dreams with him. To build a company of my own, to help people who were suffering. "I will support your dream," he promised. But I had no idea how much worse things were about to get. That winter, when I was 17, something began to feel off. Nausea, dizziness, a missed period. I bought a pregnancy test from the drugstore, hands shaking as I took it. Positive. I stayed calm and logical. It was unexpected, yes, but freaking out wouldn't help. I decided to talk to Brian first, then my parents. At the lake, I told Brian I was pregnant. He was shocked at first, but then, without hesitation, he stepped up. "I'll take full responsibility. I'll protect you and our baby." Brian said it with unwavering determination. Just then, a sleek black luxury car pulled up near the lake. A driver in a tailored suit stepped out. "Mr. Brian Anderson, your father is requesting your presence." I froze. "Driver? Father? Lauren, there's something I haven't told you." Brian looked at me with regret. "My father is Frank Anderson, founder of Anderson Capital." My world shattered. Anderson Capital? One of the biggest investment firms in the country? He was the heir to an empire? "I just wanted a normal relationship with you. But now things are different. I'll use every resource I have to protect you both." The next day, I gathered all my courage and told my parents the truth. "Mom, Dad, I'm pregnant." My father's reaction was beyond anything I could have imagined. "You filthy whore." He slapped me hard across the face. "Pregnant at 17. You shameless disgrace." My mother joined in. "What will the neighbors think? You've ruined John's reputation." My sister Kelly just laughed. "Knew it. That's so Lauren. Loose with her head and her legs." My father shoved me to the floor. "You'll get an abortion. Now, and no one will ever know." "Dad, please." I tried to reason with him, but he only grew more violent. "No buts. You are a stain on this family." The next morning, my mother dragged me to a gynecologist's office. Kelly came too, to make sure I didn't run. The doctor, Dr. Hillary Miller, spoke with a grave tone. "Considering Lauren's medical history, there are significant risks involved with termination. Due to previous ovarian surgery and hormonal imbalances, there's an 85% chance she'll never conceive again." My whole body trembled. Never have children again? That would change my entire future. "This could very well be your first and only pregnancy," Dr. Miller warned. Something inside me shifted irrevocably. "I won't have an abortion. I'm keeping this baby." My mother and Kelly turned pale. Back home, I begged them to understand. "Mom, Dad, please listen. If I go through with this, none of us will come out okay. If I can't have children later in life, you'll never have grandchildren." But my father refused to listen. "Shut up. Reputation matters more than anything." After I refused the abortion, the abuse became unbearable. First, my father called my workplace. "My daughter Lauren is pregnant. She's become irresponsible. Please fire her." It was a lie, but I was terminated immediately. My only income source was gone. Then he spread vicious rumors across town. My daughter got pregnant at 17. The father? No one knows. She's just some wild, loose girl. It was another lie. But no one dared question the town's most respected professor. When people saw me, they visibly turned away. At the grocery store, I'd hear them whisper, "That's her, the one. Pregnant at 17? How tragic. Poor parents." The violence at home only escalated. My father began beating me regularly. "You've disgraced this family. I can't even stand the sight of your filthy face anymore." His verbal abuse turned vicious. They cut my meals down to scraps, one meal a day, usually leftovers. I was pregnant and malnourished. But the worst part was the psychological torment. My mother's words sliced through me like knives. You should never have been born. You've ruined my life. Kelly was no less cruel. That baby in your stomach? Probably defective, just like you. Must run in the blood. I cried myself to sleep every night. But I couldn't give up. I had to protect the child growing inside me. In my 3rd month of pregnancy, the final blow came. One morning at breakfast, my father gave me an ultimatum. Lauren, this is your last chance. Either have an abortion or get out. I didn't even hesitate. I'll leave. His voice was ice cold. Then never come back. You're dead to us. You'll never find work in this town. Die in the gutter. As a final act of cruelty, he called my high school. My daughter is pregnant and a behavioral threat. She should be expelled. And just like that, I was kicked out of school. Stripped of my diploma. I left home with nothing but a single suitcase. No money, no one to turn to. A 17-year-old pregnant girl thrust into the world alone. But I didn't give up. I would protect this child. I will succeed. And I would make my family regret everything. That was the day my revenge began. When I called Brian, he came for me without hesitation. As we drove toward the Anderson estate in his family's luxury car, I made a silent vow. I will succeed. And one day, they'll see what I've become. The Anderson family welcomed me with warmth. You're incredibly brave. To make such a decision at 17, it's extraordinary, said Wynne Anderson, Brian's mother. Frank Anderson nodded solemnly. A woman with your strength, my son's lucky to have you. But I never intended to rely on their kindness forever. I was determined to stand on my own. Even while pregnant, I studied relentlessly. I passed the high school equivalency exam and enrolled in an online university. I told Brian firmly, even after this baby is born, I'm not giving up on my dreams. I'm going to build my own company. By day, I prepared for childbirth. By night, I worked through university coursework. I slept 4 hours a night, but I was on fire. Then my son Ryan was born. The moment I held his tiny body in my arms, everything crystallized. Ryan, I will raise you with strength, dignity, and love. While raising him, I continued to study business, accounting, law, everything I'd need to become an entrepreneur. When Ryan turned 1, Brian proposed. At the time, I was still under 18 and legally couldn't marry without parental consent. So Brian waited until I came of age. Lauren, I want to marry you on your terms, at your pace. He understood I didn't want dependency, I wanted partnership. I said yes without hesitation. Because this wasn't just love, it was equality. I graduated top of my class, and I put my long-held plan into motion. I founded the New Hope Foundation. As CEO, I oversaw everything. Support for young mothers, access to education, career counseling. We launched with a $10 million budget. I traveled the country, seeking sponsors, sharing my story. I was 17, pregnant, abandoned by my family. But I never gave up, and I found my path. The foundation grew rapidly. Within 3 years, we became one of the largest nonprofits in the country, with a $50 million annual budget. I gave lectures across the U.S., gaining recognition as a national leader in teen pregnancy advocacy. Television interviews followed. Lawmakers consulted me. My voice began to shape policy. Then, 10 years into my marriage, I learned a devastating truth. It came from my aunt, Diane, the only relative who had stayed in contact with me after my family disowned me. "Lauren, your parents had another child. One they never told you about." Aunt Diane spoke with a grave tone. "What?" "A baby boy named Chris. He was born without legs. John and Vanessa were ashamed, so they abandoned him at the hospital." When I heard that, something inside me erupted. So they discarded a disabled child, just like they discarded their pregnant daughter? Yes. All they ever cared about was appearances. Without hesitation, I hired a private investigator to find my brother, Chris Hansen. A month later, we finally met. Chris was named after his adoptive parents, and he was a world-renowned author. "So, I have a sister," Chris said, tears in his eyes. I was crying too. "Chris, they abandoned both of us. But look at us, we made it anyway." Chris had been raised with love by his adoptive parents and had become a best-selling writer. We grew close quickly and started meeting every month. Then, a few years later, my perfect opportunity for revenge. My father, John, announced he was running for mayor. I watched him give a speech on TV and scoffed. "Family values are the foundation of a healthy society," he said with sanctimonious pride. At the same time, I was featured in Forbes' top 50 most influential women in the world. The article highlighted my success, but I deliberately left out anything about my family. On the final day of his campaign, I appeared at the event. At that point, my husband Brian's company was considering a $1 billion investment, a major factory development project in the very same town. The outcome of the election would directly influence the investment decision. As such, Brian and I were invited as VIP guests and economic advisors. My father's campaign was desperate to use us support from prominent investors as political leverage. In front of 2,000 attendees and dozens of TV cameras, my father was proudly discussing education policy. Then came the question from a reporter. "Recently, Senator Wesley's son was arrested for underage drinking. As a candidate, how do you feel about situations like this?" My father answered smugly, "This is the result of poor parenting. Parents of troubled children lack the qualities of true leaders. I'd love to see the face of such an irresponsible parent." The room went silent. He had no idea what he'd just walked into. I stood up and took the microphone. "Maybe you should look in the mirror. Then you'll see an irresponsible parent is standing right in front of you, Dad." Gasps echoed through the hall. Cameras began flashing wildly. The crowd was stunned. My father's face was drained of color. "Lauren? It can't be." My husband Brian slowly rose to his feet and took the mic. "Good afternoon. I'm Brian Anderson, CEO of Anderson Capital." The energy in the room shifted instantly. Everyone knew who he was. And now, the billionaire investor himself had stood up. "And this is my wife, Lauren, the biological daughter of candidate John Smith." The hall descended into chaos. The man John Smith had most desperately hoped to court for a $1 billion deal was married to the very daughter he had cast out of his life. Reporters swarmed us with questions. "Mr. Anderson, is this true? Mr. Smith, are you estranged from your daughter? What will happen to the investment plan?" My father stood frozen and couldn't say a single word. The daughter he had declared as good as dead 22 years ago was now the wife of the man controlling the town's economic future. It was nothing short of poetic irony. I took the mic again. "You all just heard my father say. Parents of troubled children lack the qualities of true leaders. I'd love to see the face of such an irresponsible parent. Well, 22 years ago, this man threw me out of our home when I got pregnant at 17. He spread lies about me throughout the town, destroyed my reputation, and tried to ruin my life. I continued. And that's not all. My parents had another child, my brother Chris. He was born with a physical disability. But they were so ashamed, they abandoned him at the hospital. A horrified gasp rose from the crowd. That man is now a successful author, Chris Hansen, and he's here today. Chris rolled onto the stage in his wheelchair. I was born without legs, but my parents left me behind because they were ashamed. I stepped forward. When I became pregnant, my father beat me, starved me, and sabotaged my job. He called my employer with false claims and had me fired. He contacted my high school and got me expelled. Then he spread vile rumors across town telling people I was a promiscuous teen who didn't even know the father of her child. The hall exploded into shouts and flashing cameras. And now that same man dares to preach about family values. He abandoned not one, but two of his own children. One through violence and one through desertion. What kind of hypocrisy is that? Reporters bombarded him with questions. My father stood there, speechless. The footage went viral in minutes. The hashtag #SmithHypocrisy was top trending nationwide. And the first to fall was the man who once ruled his home with an iron fist. Within 24 hours of my public revelation, he withdrew from the mayoral race. His supporters fled like rats from a sinking ship. Protesters gathered outside his campaign office with signs reading, "Hypocrite. Man who abandons his children." The university acted swiftly. Citing a serious scandal in direct violation of our core values, my father was immediately dismissed. At 67, John Smith was unemployed, disgraced in the national spotlight. And no one would hire him again. The man who once held his head high with the title of professor had now become a pitiful old man completely ignored by the world. 2 years later, my father was diagnosed with heart disease. Unable to afford surgery, he came to me in tears. "Please, Lauren, I might die," he begged. His voice was unrecognizable, no longer the same man who had once screamed, "Get out," while hitting me 22 years ago. I agreed on one condition. He would issue a public apology on local television. The man who once lived for pride and reputation was apologizing on national TV, crying, "I failed as a father." It was the ultimate humiliation. But my mother's downfall was even more tragic. After the scandal broke, the neighbors, those whose opinions she always obsessed over, turned on her. Every time she went out in public, she heard the whispers. "That's Vanessa Smith, the woman who abandoned her disabled child. She threw her daughter out of the house with violence." 22 years ago, her favorite phrase had been, "What will the neighbors think?" Now those same neighbors looked at her with nothing but disgust. It was a cruel twist of fate. Unable to bear it, she stopped going outside. Eventually, she fell into a deep depression. "I can't go out anymore. I'm terrified of the way people look at us," she confessed to a relative. After my father's televised apology, her mental state worsened even further. She was ultimately institutionalized in a psychiatric facility. The woman who once valued appearances above all else ended up losing everything she cared about. But perhaps the most dramatic fall was that of Kelly, the so-called perfect daughter. She had been a beloved elementary school teacher until the scandal exploded. Parents protested furiously. "We can't trust the Smith family with our children. She's part of an abusive family. she was forced to resign. She tried applying to other schools, none would hire her. At 32, the former beauty queen was now unemployed, shunned by the community. The same sister who once looked down on me as a failure was now the one who couldn't even find work. Worse yet was her husband Peter's reaction. He lost his job at the bank due to the scandal and turned on her. "Your family destroyed my life," he spat. Their marriage crumbled and they got divorced. Kelly moved back into her childhood home and now works part-time as a janitor, while caring for our aging parents. The perfect sister who once looked down on me, saying, "That would never happen to me," had now become a woman with nothing left to lose. Meanwhile, Peter lives alone in poverty. The pride he had as a banker, his marriage, everything is gone. Today, the Smith family survives on a meager pension. The once pristine family home is in disrepair. The yard is overgrown. They are completely ostracized from the community, known only as the disgrace down the street. It was exactly what they had once tried to do to me. They had thrown me out, spread lies about me, tried to destroy me socially. Now society has done the same to them. Perfect poetic justice. Meanwhile, my relationship with Chris grew stronger. His wife Ashley and their 2 adopted children became part of our family. "We finally found our real family," Chris said one day. "Love is stronger than blood," I replied. Chris turned our story into a novel, The Abandoned Children. It became a nationwide bestseller. He donated part of the royalties to the New Hope Foundation, so that other children in similar circumstances could get the help they needed. Today, I am recognized as one of the most influential women in America. The New Hope Foundation now operates with an annual budget of over $100 million and has supported over 200,000 women nationwide. My son Ryan is now 22. He graduated valedictorian from Harvard University. My daughter Emma, now 17, is equally brilliant and full of promise. "Mom, I'm proud of you," Ryan told me one day. "You came from such a difficult place and built this extraordinary life." Brian supports me in every way. "You're my pride," he often says. Our marriage remains strong, built on mutual respect and love. My father's surgery was a success. But his social standing? That was beyond repair. The townspeople never forgave them. Kelly still works part-time, cleaning offices, while caring for our father. They got what they deserved, I once heard someone say on the street. After what they did to Lauren 22 years ago, this is justice. 22 years ago, I was a 17-year-old girl beaten, abandoned, publicly shamed by my own family. But today, I am the wife of a billionaire, a successful CEO, and a symbol of hope for thousands of women. I rose from the ashes, built an empire, and used my success to uplift others. I became a beacon of light for those still trapped in darkness. And the family that abused me? They lost everything: financial security, social status, mental stability. Everything they did to destroy me 22 years ago came back to destroy them. This is true justice. And now I am genuinely happy. And I'm sharing that happiness with others. This is my real victory.